Indigenous Covenant for Ecclesiastical Unity, 2024. At the culmination of the Fourth International Decade, 2015 to 2024. For peoples of African descent to eradicate neocolonialism. Indigenous Preamble. Mindful of the fact that the unanimous UN Resolution 1514 of 1960 established the Declaration on the Granting of Complete Independence to Former Colonial Countries and Peoples as a lawful diplomatic remedy, aware that the 1962 Jamaican Constitution superimposed a British subcorporation on the island to protect foreign property interests only, convinced that the fundamental basis of a sovereign and independent government derived from the metaphysical principle of the consent, will, of the governed people, in solidarity, accepting the divine truth that universal recognition of the inherent dignity, priceless value, and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the UN foundation of political freedom, social justice, and international peace in the modern world of global commerce, invoking the international right to self-determination with cultural and political autonomy and collective security, all for one Christos and one Christos for all, safeguarding present and future generations from economic oppression and political exploitation under the geopolitical Jesuit system of capitalism and usury, therefore proclaim that the sovereign will of the peoples of African descent in Jamaican territory collectively implement this Indigenous Covenant for Ecclesiastical Unity 2024, in Collective Unity. Article 1, by virtue of Article 8 of the UDHR Charter, which grants everyone with the international right to an effective diplomatic remedy, in conjunction with Article 21.3 which affirms that the will of the people shall be the basis for securing international political legitimacy, this Indigenous Covenant for Ecclesiastical Unity 2024 shall invoke Articles 18 and 19 as directly relevant to all spiritual institutions, groups, and individuals in the Jamaican Law Society. Article 2 Spiritual leaders are duty-bound to protect the human rights interests of their congregations as a whole, which will enable them to secure recognition as spiritual human rights defenders of indigenous peoples' souls. Article 3 Recognition of each other as indigenous churches in which the Ethiopian gospel is rightly preached and the sacraments rightly administered according to the word of Egziaber, elect of God. Article 4 Denunciation of any historic condemnation by one side or the other as inappropriate for the life and faith of our indigenous churches today. Article 5 Reciprocal recognition of each other's baptism and authorize and encourage the sharing of the sovereign abetus, Lord's, Supper among their members. Article 6 Equitable recognition of each other's various human rights ministries and make provision for the orderly exchange of ordained ministers of word and sacrament. Article 7 Establishment of appropriate channels of consultation and decision-making within the existing structures of the indigenous churches in Jamaican territory. Article 8 Commitment and loyalty to an ongoing process of theological human rights dialogue in order to clarify further the common overstanding of the faith, expectation of profit to arise, and foster its common expression in evangelism, witness, and service. Article 9 Communal pledge of living and learning together under the Ethiopian gospel in such a way that the principle of mutual affirmation and admonition becomes the basis of a trusting relationship in which respect and love, obedience to UDHR law, for the other will have a chance to grow in our modern world of global commerce. Article 10 Implementation of Articles 18 and 19 of the UDHR Charter of Fundamental Equality, for the spiritual and political protection of spiritual leaders, groups, and human rights organs in Jamaican Law Society. Triumphant Human Rights Victory Day, in the Jamaican Law Society. Today is a day on which Jamaica is stretching forth her hands to Egziaber, elect of God, in joy and thankfulness, and revealing her happiness to her children and her country, and especially those faithful soldiers tasked with the duty as an enforcement mechanism for all human rights violations against the collective majority. They constitute principles which no branch of the government, be it the executive, legislative or judiciary, can transgress and which, in consequence, must be placed under the particular protection of an indigenous sovereign, monarch, himself. We ourselves will always be ready to act positively to ensure respect for these human rights by all branches and every official of the people's government, central body of authority. Thus, the lowliest subject in Jamaica, the poorest as well as the richest, even the convict in prison, will always have the assurance that the indigenous sovereign will at all times be vigilant in the protection of his human rights and fundamental liberties. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, Charter is an international treaty adopted by the United Nations General Assembly that enshrines the international rights and fundamental political freedoms of all human beings. Adopted as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, groups of like-minded individuals, the UDHR Charter commits nations to recognize all humans as being born debt-free and politically equal in inherent dignity, priceless value, and international rights, diplomatic privileges, regardless of nationality, place of residence, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. Article 18 of the UDHR Charter states, everyone has the international right to freedom of thought, conscience and religion, way of life. This international right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in an autonomous community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in human rights teaching, diplomatic practice, spiritual worship and annual observance. Article 19 of the UDHR Charter states, everyone has the international right to freedom of opinion and expression. This international right includes freedom to hold opinions without Jesuit interference and to seek, receive and impart human rights information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Caveat: individual rights are just as equally important as the collective rights of the majority, so public servants will begin to share liability as we invoke Article 30 of the UDHR Charter of Fundamental Equality, as a lawful diplomatic remedy. Article 30 of the UDHR Charter states, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, political entity, group, political parties, or person, Pope, GG, PM, Rear Admiral, any international right to engage in any activity,